back. We're back from our glitch in the space-time continuum. When you're dealing with technology and the person that you're interviewing is 14 hours ahead, sometimes glitches happen. But see, Pauline already knew this. She was prepared. So what we're going to do is we'll put this part of the interview and we'll clip it back to the other one, and it'll be okay. I think people will understand. They'll say, well, what the heck? What happened? There's a little bit of a lag. Hey, you know what? This is just like real world. Technology is one of those things that you can't predict. And when it happens, you just go with it. People, I've been on Google Hangouts. I've been on Skype. I've been on other webinars where something happens and people freak out like the end of the world's happening. You know what? Just go with it. Roll with it. And I think that's the beauty of copywriting, is that every client's a little different. Yeah, you have kind of in your mindset how you want to lay out the piece, but the writing's always different. Did I lose you again?
Yeah, the audio just stopped. So, did you ask me a question?
I did. I think,
Yeah.
but this is fun. I said that every client's a little different. So when we write our copy, although the template may be, we know how we're going to write it, the words are always going to be different.
Yeah.
What was your most challenging marketing
when you just asked the question? Doesn't like that question. I think we're being censored.
Yeah.
So what was my most challenging?
Yes. What was your most challenging piece?
I think my most challenging piece that I've written for a client was it was sort of like for a spiritual healer who had not worked with a direct response copywriter before. So it was a big shock to her. I handed in the first draft, and because she wasn't really very compliant in the first place and didn't understand the process, when I gave her the first draft, she just thought that I had I don't know, I couldn't speak English and that I had missed her message entirely. And sometimes, as a copywriter, we don't quite get it bang on what client. Sometimes we miss their voice, and especially when they don't fill out the questionnaire or they don't tell us stuff in the interview. We're not mind readers or psychics, and even ones that are, we're not being paid as that, so give us a bit of help. So she was perhaps one of my most challenging. And also for a direct response, we do an email as good as we can, because we know that people are so busy these days they don't have the time to read like a 3-page. And so I did like a half-page email, did all the information that needed. And because she didn't understand the way the sales funnel worked, although I'd explained it fairly in immense detail, she just said no, extended them out to about 3 pages. And I think that job didn't really exactly end well for me. It felt like a kick in the guts, because I really did try my hardest to try to get her and her message out to the world in a way that made sense to them. But, some people, they're just stuck in their ways, and as a copywriter, we just have to roll with the punches. But mind you, although it felt like a failure, the copy worked in the form that she eventually got. It worked. It filled up her workshops, and she has an evergreen piece of copy that she can continue to use for years to come. And so she more than got her money's worth, I'd say.
Now, the new term lately is evergreen. Trying to make our pieces sound so that if we write them now, in 10 years, they still sound like, today. So, I
Yeah.
mean, do you try to incorporate some of that evergreen thought into what you're writing, or is it more in the now?
That's an interesting thing. Some of the packages that I do are offline packages called a shock and awe pack. And I mean, Dan Kennedy basically invented them, but in Australia we do sort of a similar thing modeled off him. And, when a client's having like thousands of, printed up, you want those to be evergreen. You don't want to date those in any way because, some businesses could go through those in a couple of months, and other businesses, they'll be stuck with these for maybe a whole year. So I learned very quickly in copywriting through, like a baptism of fire with a job that I had on a copywriting team, to try not to ever date my copy. And always get the most current figures you possibly can, because as you said, if your copy is going to be so-called evergreen and it's going to be around for 5 years, then getting data and statistics from 2001 is not going to cut it in 10 years' time. So I do incorporate that, but I will talk to my client about, like with web copy, that can change very quickly and you can update it very simply. But when people are having copious amounts of things printed up, then their offers have to stand. Or what you can do is, in the case of the shock and awe packs, is have a freestanding offer form instead of putting your offer at the bottom of every page. So it's just sort of, I guess, copy common sense about how you're going to use the copy in the future.
And how does I know in America, our postal service has a lot of different rules, especially with the shock and awe packages. If they're have pieces in them, or they're bulky or this or that, how do you I don't know how the Australian mail service works, but do some of those pieces you can't use, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, there are limitations on it, and I think when a copywriter writes any piece of copy, because I do line, and I love lumpy mail or grabbers, putting grabbers on letters to make sure that they get opened. But you have to have consideration for the person who's sending it, because even if something's only a few millimeters thicker, than another object, that can actually double their price on postage. And yeah, there are some limitations on sizes that you can use, but there's always, I think as a copywriter, you just have to have that creativity to think outside the square, and instead of just using the same old that everyone else uses. I think as a copywriter, that's where my creativity and imagination goes wild, when I have to think of, like Jay Abraham and Chet Holmes used to do the wish list 100, and then they just send out, like lumpy mail after lumpy mail after lumpy mail. And, how do you keep that enthusiasm and creativity going? But I just never run out. And then I just think of the craziest things, and then I ask the client, well, would you send this? And then they send it, and it goes really well. People are almost waiting to see what they get next.
How do you incorporate the old school way of thinking, the direct response marketing, to some of the new technologies? I mean, we talked about Facebook and Twitter, but clients seem to embrace the social media, the now, and they're saying, well, why do I need this marketing piece? I know from America's standpoint, we're not delivering as many pieces of mail as we used to. We're not getting we're not receiving as many. So for now, receiving that piece of mail, I can ensure that person's going to actually look at it.
Yeah, well, we're very similar as well, because people going more online and saying no, online's a way of the future. Direct mail is dead, and it's like, no, it's not. And in fact, because of most of the businesses going online and putting all their money into AdWords and Facebook ads, everyone's letterbox is empty. So if you can actually put something of value, and see, this is a thing as well, make sure it's valuable, make sure you're actually offering them something, because it's funny, because people think that getting someone's email is their right as a business. I've got an opt-in page, I can, someone's just going to give me their email address. Well, that's valuable. That's like giving you their home address to send the mail to. You're actually going to occupy their time. So you want to make sure that whatever you're sending them is not going to be the uninvited pest. It's going to be the welcome guest that's going to offer them the solution that perhaps they weren't aware that they needed. But, by golly, by the time they've finished reading your letter, they go, I don't know how I've been living without this. That's the whole purpose of it, is, offering solutions to people, not crap.
Well, there's a lot of crap out there.
Oh, there is.
Besides the long form direct response, I mean, what else do you do? I know you talked about emails. I mean, just describe kind of the funnel that you would create for a client.
Well, I mean, I've created some pretty huge funnels, and I mean, it depends on, I'll sit down with the client and I'll say, okay, so how do you want to, approach people? So, some of the bigger funnels that I've done, I've started out with offline advertising, like a lead gen ad. Sometimes they're just like a quarter page or a space ad, or they could be a whole page ad that then will go in page, or with the offline ad, I like to use a coupon, because even Joe Sugarman still says to this day, people will actually sit there and write painstakingly in the smallest spot that you've got your coupon, and they will still mail in. So, if you don't have a coupon on your offline, like your advertising, then you're leaving it on the table. I like to give people a number of ways, and so like a coupon or a recorded message. And then obviously for people funnel, if they've come online, then keep them online. But if they've come offline, well, there's a reason that they haven't emailed you or engaged with you online, because they perhaps want to go online. So don't force them to a landing page. That in mind. So yeah, then from that, you can either go down, which would be then a landing page, free report stuffing, series, sales letters, all that sort of stuff, continuation, and then offline, like postcards. Basically keep mailing them until they, what did they say, buy or die? But it just depends on how deep you want to go, and I think that's the sign of good copywriter. But a copywriter who's a marketer see the holes in the funnel, because I had a couple of clients approach me last year. They had everything in the bag. This is the funnel I want you to write for me. And I looked at it and I went, well, there's a hole here. Where do we go from this to this? And then over on your online, what about this hole? And they're saying, I didn't even see that. Whereas I guess a copywriter who's not a marketer would have just, written all the elements that, like a good copywriter. But then the client would have been missing out on money, or perhaps the whole thing one of the cogs was off.
Early on when I started writing, I would write these, what I thought were brilliant letters, sales letters. And I had one client come to me and they said, I would absolutely never say that. And I said, okay, let me write it in your voice. And they said,
Yep.
no, I don't think that's going to work for me. He says, you want me to guarantee this and have a toll-free number and accept credit cards? I don't do any of that. I thought, am I writing this to appease them, or, am I trying to incorporate what I know works to make them, and we can't please everyone. We know what
Yeah,
works,
that's true.
you
Mm,
know, and I think that's the problem sometimes. We as entrepreneurs accept clients that we know deep down aren't ideal for us, but
yeah,
maybe we need the money, maybe we want the challenge, maybe, we want to break into a new industry, and it comes back and it bites us,
yeah.
you
I
know.
think sometimes it's just as simple as that we want to help people be successful. We can see the potential in them. And I had a client recently that had basically edited my copy and took out all my copy clicks. I say that, but took out the copy clicks. And I said to them, "Why did you take out those phrases?" And they said, "Oh, we just didn't think they were grammatically correct." I said, "Do you want your marketing to pass the grad test, or do you make your money?" Because, and it's not to say that I'm sloppy with my grammar. I'm certainly not. What I am is that I favor conversationalism, like the conversational copy rather than grammatically correct. And so I'll keep the flow going, like Joe Sugarman talks about the greased slide. Well, when I handed the copy to the client, it was a beautiful greased slide. The pace of the read was beautiful, there were no pause words, or there was nothing that would catch. When they handed me back the copy, it was like, corrugated tin all the way down with ejector buttons every 5 words. I found it incredibly hard to get to the end of the piece that they'd sent back, and I gave it to some friends to read, and they went, "You didn't write this?" And I went, "No, they edited all the goodness out of it." And I think that comes back to it, Rob. I just wish sometimes that the clients would trust us, that we actually do know what we're doing, because they pay a lot of money to get us to write stuff for them that's different to what they've been using all along. But then they neuter it and they'll cut it back to look the same as they've always had. And it can be frustrating. I had a client last year approach me and said, "Pauline, I could be talking to any of the top copywriters in Australia, but I'm talking to you." And I thought, well, that's interesting. Anyway, so then they said, "We want to give you a go because we've heard that you're refreshing. You've got a different perspective on things." And I said, "All right, well, if I can have creative control, I'll give it a go." So I wrote them some postcards for a new campaign, and then little by little, they started to edit it back to exactly the same as everything that they'd ever mailed before. To the fact then that they'll probably look at that copy and go, "Yeah, Pauline Longdon wrote that, but it didn't work." Pauline Longdon didn't write that copy because the copy that she wrote would have worked, because it was so different and refreshing. Like I gave them a whole new lease of life, and they just edited right back to where they were used to. So it was pretty sad.
Yeah, and I think that the reason why conversational style writing works and it gets people to understand, it's because of the way we talk.
Yeah.
I don't speak in grammatically correct sentences. You know,
Mm.
you know, I haven't even mastered the English language. So, I'm going to speak the way I'm going to talk, write the way I speak. And I
Yeah.
think that people can understand that. When I write my books, it's all conversational style writing. And people have
Mm.
said, wow,
Yeah.
I read your book and it was like having a 2-hour conversation with you. Well, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I like that. And I want people to, when they read a piece, to say the same thing. Wow, it was like having a conversation with you. I was,
Yeah.
it was like you were right there, but
Mm.
then you have people that go back and say, the grammar was awful. You spelled words wrong,
Yeah.
and they grade it like you're back in English school. No, I don't want those types of
Yeah.
clients.
I had a client that did the reverse thing to me last year, and I was writing for an intellectual market. Let's say that they're academics, and anyway, so I wrote a whole marketing package for that. And then they turned around and said, "Pauline, why didn't you, instead of using should not or could not? Why didn't you just use couldn't and shouldn't? I said, because these academics don't speak like that. And because you're not of the same intellectual level, I wanted to make you sound smarter. And they just went, oh, really? Because I guess the thing is that I do have a Bachelor of Nursing and a Bachelor of Science. So I know how to, so I guess I gamut and spectrum of writing, so I can write. But, I just wanted to write the way that the people sales letter would understand. And we couldn't be salesy because they don't respond to that. They're not info marketers or biz-op people. They are in a profile, very respectable business, and they don't want to listen to, like you see some of the copywriters and people say, oh, it ain't about this, and, little words that they use. And it's like, that just won't fly in certain markets. So, yeah, we not only have to write how we would speak, but also the way that the market that we're writing for will speak. Otherwise, it's like we're imposters and they won't engage with us. Yeah.
How do you, you spoke about profile, and it's not that we want to screen our clients, but how do you profile them in a way that, gets other people excited about them?
Yeah, I think it works both sides. You have to really profile like the person that you're writing for and profile the person you're writing to. And then as the copywriter, you're sort of like the middle person. I see myself as like a translator, making the person that I'm writing for seem very palatable and approachable and just human, because some of them don't, they're not all that human. And I think, humans connect, right? And so people will buy off people. And this is where I think that a lot of people get it wrong, is they think that they're writing on behalf of their business or their company or whatever to a consumer or a market. But I like what Laurie does. Laurie talks about it being a target. So it's like your target market joined together into being one person. And it's sort of like just finding that sweet spot between the two, what your client is offering the market and what the market wants, and then wrapping it up in a whole bunch of beautiful words, crafting a message that, is in integrity with the client that you're writing for, but also is compelling and attractive to the people that they're writing to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, now you have a great support system, not only with your friends, but with your partner. How do you balance that life between customer and friends and family?
Well, I think the way that it really works is to just have roles within relationships. And it sounds really funny, but with a partner, it's like, okay, so during these hours, we're business partners, but after these hours, we're, just regular partners. Other times we are, sometimes they might be my boss or I'll be their boss. It's sort of like just having little role, and that's what I used to teach. I used to teach metaphysical healing and things like that, courses to people. And I used to say, when two partners are doing the same stuff and they're learning how to heal and, do NLP on each other and things like that, it's really exciting. But, your partner doesn't want to be healed by you all the time. Sometimes they just want someone to listen to them. So, just having those boundaries and just knowing what people want from you and what you want from them and making that clear. I think it just comes down to clear communication, Rob. It's and that whole thing that there's a great saying that I really like. We've got two ears in that proportion. I spend a lot of my life listening to people and listening to what's happening around me, and that gives me such an insight into what people want and don't actually. don't want. That's just as important.
Yeah, it's that same communication that we need to present to our clients to kind of get them, get us to know them to know us, and kind of have
Yeah.
the boundaries in place so that we know that we're not crossing them, but we also know how to help them.
Yeah. Great.
Now we're running out of time, and I really enjoyed this
Okay.
conversation. Do you have any last minute thoughts or something that you want to share with the audience?
I think just to leave them with a tip is just you're writing to a fellow human, just write from your heart space. A lot of people in days gone by would think that people who are heartfelt, that was a weakness. I think that the consumer is more conscious these days, and remembering that when we write to people, they've already been sold to before. We're not starting at zero. We're starting at minus 100. They've seen all the tricks. But what they haven't seen is authenticity and genuine concern for them. And I think that that's something that sets me apart as a copywriter, is because, and we started with this very thing, and I think we've come full circle, Rob, so it's a great place to end, is just have that genuine empathy for your fellow human beings, and stay in integrity with yourself would be my biggest tip.
Now, how do people get a hold of you? Whether they're in Australia, whether they're global, how do they get a hold of you to hire you as a copywriter?
Okay, well, I have a website called thecopyalchemist.com, and there's a sales letter on there, so they can get a sample of my writing. You can contact me through there. They can find me on Facebook, Pauline Longdon. I'm love to get in touch with people there. I'm pretty easy to find, but I'm a global copywriter. I don't just stick to my own, little dot on the map. I travel around the world, and I see myself doing more of that in the future. So, yeah.
And when will you be back in America?
October. I'm very excited.
And where are you headed?
LA. I can't go to America without going to LA first. They're the rules. And then I'm going to Florida, then Phoenix, and I'm not sure where else, but obviously back to LA and then home. But I'm hoping to see a few more people in between times, so we'll see how it goes.
All right.
I'd like to catch up with you.
Yeah, we were supposed to meet in New York, and just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
For all those that are watching, make sure that you go to her or Pauline's website, the copyalchemist.com. See her on Facebook, and if you're in America and want to check her out, she'll be in America in October. So hopefully you get to see her in Phoenix or LA or Florida. She's doing the world tour, or at least the American tour. And Pauline, I want to thank you for being here. And if the audience says, "Hey, bring Pauline back," then I'm going to bring you back. So we look forward to that.
Thank you so much, Rob, for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.